Welkin Suite's Getting Started in Structural video. In this video, we will show you a high-level overview of some of the most interesting and most important features that the Welkin Suite has to offer. So you'll be able to explore them more on your own, and you'll be able to benefit from them faster in your daily development task. So right now, we just see basically an empty screen with a relatively empty IDE, because at this moment, we do not have any project open. In order to start working, we need to first create a new project, and we can do this through the main menu. Just click on File, New, and Project, and select the correct Salesforce project that we need, and give it some desirable name. Now just press Next, and we can see on the screen where we need to enter our credentials. We can go the standard route using some username, password, and security token, or we can use OAuth for authorization. This would allow us to log into the organization without having to save any credentials within the project files. For this case here, let's go with the standard approach. So we'll select the environment. For this example, it will be production, and then we enter our credentials and press Next. At this point, the IDE verifies our credentials and seeks information about the different available metadata types from the organization. By default, everything is related to Apex, Visual Force, Lightning, Static Resources, and S-Objects will be included into our project. However, if we want to, we can include some additional types of metadata. For example, let's here include some permission sets, layouts, and even a couple custom types. Once this is done, we press Next, and Next once more. And now the IDE starts to download the project, and a cool thing here is it does this in a very efficient, optimized way. To do this, the IDE is using multiple threads in order to provide us with the best performance that can be achieved from our Salesforce organization. What this means is that even for very big projects, normally the download will happen within just minutes. So, as you can see here, everything is finished, so we can press Finish and start to work with the project. So once the project is loaded, we can see the Solution Explorer panel. This shows us everything that is part of the project. For example, everything that's related to our classes, layouts, and so on. In addition to the Solution Explorer, we have a lot of different other panels which provide us with almost everything that we might need during our day-to-day task. For example, we have a Test Results panel, which shows us our previous test runs and their results. We can also see here code coverage information, so we can keep an eye out on our unit test coverage, and as part of the works, we can see the Debug Logs panel as well. I will get back to all these panels in a bit, but for now, let's focus on the Solution Explorer. So what we can see now is the standard structure of the Salesforce project that has many different types of files, which are separated into a few folders. However, this IDE provides us a really cool option to create our own custom folders and structure that will be much more useful to us to navigate within large projects. For example, in this solution, let's create a folder called Demo, where we can gather everything that we might need during this video. So we go ahead and name it Demo, go to Classes, select the classes to which we need. So let's get Dummy Class and Method Calls. And we drag them to the Demo folder. Additionally, let's include an account, one more permission set, and even some random Visual Force pages. We can do this because the IDE allows us to mix different types of files in the same folder. Even more, we can create subfolders to give us better grouping and organization for our files. So let's show this. Let's create a new subfolder and call it Test. It could be helpful for us to separate the unit test from the logic. So let's now use the search function in the Solution Explorer. So we type here test, so it will show us the different Apex texts from this project. Let's now select a couple of them at random and again drag and drop them into our test folder. After doing this, we can clear the filter and we have our demo folder now with everything that we might need during this demonstration today. Another cool thing about the Solution Explorer is that all the zipped static resources are automatically unzipped and shown to us as any regular file. So for example, we can see this jQuery static resource, its internal structure is preserved, and if we need to do any changes, like for example this CSS file, we can just double click on it and start making our changes. Just as an example here, let's change some color. We can even use our cool color picker here, and then we can change the font. How about we make it a little bit more interesting and go with something like Comic Sans. And here it is. Once we're finished, the IDE automatically zips the static resources and sends it to the organization. So we don't need to do anything to edit our static resources. So we can just jump in, do whatever we need, and everything else is handled by the IDE. In addition to CSS, the IDE supports everything that is related to Apex, Lightning, Visualforce, HTML, and JavaScript files. Also, the IDE supports some of the XML-based metadata types. And in addition to this XML editor, the IDE provides some nice, cool graphical user interface for this. But we'll come back to this a little bit later in the video. And now let's get back to one of the most interesting things for any Salesforce developer, the Apex editor. Once we open any class, we can see that the IDE has built-in syntax highlighting, and on the right side of the editor we have a visual scroll bar which allows us to easily navigate, even when we're working in very large classes. And on the left side we have one more handy navigation tool called Class Outline. It shows us all of our fields, properties, methods, constructors, and even inner classes with all their members right here. One really cool thing is that we can double click on any item in the list and we'll be able to navigate directly to it in the code. If we return to the editor itself, we also notice that this file is not very readable because there's no formatting here. For these situations, the Welkin Suite provides us with automatic code formatting, which is available for us right from the menu. Go to Edit here, Format Code, or you can even use the Control-Q hotkey to make your code more readable. So, if we go to the editor and press the Control-Q hotkey, the IDE automatically formats the code for us, and therefore it will be much better than it was before. So now we press Control-S and the file is saved locally. So, unlike some other tools for Salesforce development, the IDE does not send changes automatically to the organization immediately. In the IDE, we can use the Pending Changes panel to show us everything that has been changed by us, but has not yet been sent to the organization. What this means is that these two files will only be sent to the organization once we press F5, or once we select Build from the main menu. And here's the list of changes. We also have some options like discard if we don't like these changes, or we have an option to see a comparison of what changes will exactly be sent to the organization. Once we press the Compare button, we see our built-in inline diff view, which shows us everything that was changed. For example, in this case, there are a lot of changes that were done by the code formatting. And because we are happy with these changes, we'll go ahead and press F5 and the build starts. As we can see, the IDE has sent just the two files that were shown in the Pending Changes panel, and we can see there are no conflicts. The build is completed in less than 7 seconds. So for a pretty big static resource and a small class, that's a pretty good result. Let's go back again to the editor, and let's see what else we have to work with. The Welkin Suite team has built its own lexer and parser, which provides us immediate and great code completion. For example, once we start typing, it will provide us with different completions that are based on the current context and based on the variables that we have around. Another cool thing is that everything is immediate here. For example, if we declare a variable, we can use it directly in the next line. So we don't need to send it to the organization before it starts to appear in our code completion. So let's see an example of this. For instance, we can see that this variable is already available for code completion and for this custom object. And it also provides us everything that is related to its fields, custom fields, standard fields. So all this information is available right here. So the IDE's code completion supports all the standard and custom namespaces, classes, methods, everything that might be needed in Apex. It also supports all the standard and custom S objects, including all of their fields. So now that we've made some changes, let's say we want to roll them back. All we need to do is go back to the pending changes panel and we can just press discard. The IDE rolls back all the changes and here it is. Nothing's broke, everything is good. Let's now move on to some of the other tools that are built in the IDE, which might be helpful in your day-to-day task. Let's go ahead and start from the unit test and the test results panel. In general, this panel shows us our previous test runs and our current test runs from the last 3 days. In this situation here, we have some results from the previous test runs. And if we don't want to see them, we can just clear this window. And then we can execute a new test run. To do this, we just press on the run button, and after doing that, we can select any class or method from our test execution rate here. Or we can switch to the test suites and easily execute one of our specially prepared test suites. So we press run test, and after that, the IDE immediately executes our unit test run. The cool thing here is that we don't need to stop doing what we're doing and switch to some browser or to any other tool to be able to get to our results. All of them are shown right here and in real time, with maybe just 20 seconds of a delay, more or less. So we can just keep coding while our tests are being executed. So if something is broken or if everything is okay, we will definitely see this. Like in our case here, we have 3 test classes and one of them is okay and 2 of them are broken. And we can also see that if we select any test method in the test results panel, in the lower part of the panel, we can see some details from Salesforce, like the failure message and the stack trace information. In some cases, this might be enough information for debugging and being able to understand the issue, but in many other cases, this is not enough. So to resolve this issue, we will now turn our focus to the Debug Logs panel. And here we press the Download Logs button. This button will configure our organization to be able to start tracking the debug logs. And the IDE will automatically pull all of them. So once this is done, we can go back to the test results panel, right-click on our test method, press rerun. This is going to execute exactly this one test method. This ability saves us a lot of time. So, as we can see, in just about a second, we can see our results immediately. And once our logs are downloaded into the IDE, in the details panel, we can see an open log button. Once we press this button, the IDE will immediately download the log files and show us the IDE's built-in Debug Logs Viewer. So what can we see and do here? In the upper part, we have a tree-like hierarchy view of our execution flow, which is very handy for organizations that have lots of triggers with complex logic and lots of nesting. It's also very easy to find something interesting or important in our debug logs in this tree view, and we can even select this interesting part and it will then be highlighted in the lower part of the text viewer. Once we have found the interesting and important parts of our log file, we can switch back to a full screen for the text view and examine it as a regular log file. In the text viewer, we have some basic highlighting for different types of log entries. For example, debug logs are shown in green, exceptions are in red. It's very easy to navigate in the logs with this type of highlighting. And it's even easier to navigate by using the scroll bar on the right-hand side. As we can see, it is very easy to see the red highlights where something is broken. And just in case our future log files are not 60 lines in length, it is very handy to use the filter options that are available. Once we click on the filter button, the IDE allows us to select what type of log entries we would like to see in our file. For example, let's say right now we would like to see executions, exceptions, and code unit started, and also code unit finished, and nothing else. We can now see the 3 lines we want, so we were able to filter out the more useless information. Now let's see one of the greatest time savers in the IDE, which this actually might seem like a very small feature, but it really saves a huge amount of time every day for many developers. In the Debug Logs Viewer, we can right-click on any line in the debug log and select this Go to Source option. This option will navigate us immediately to the exact line in the code that has produced that log entry. So in our situation, we'll be able to get to the line of code that has thrown this exception. So we press Go to Source, and we see that, bang, we are on that line of code that threw that exception. So what do we do next to be able to fix this unit test? We just right-click on the unit test, and we select the option to debug unit test. Once we press this, it will start the IDE's own retrospective debugger. It is important to say that in general, that this debugger isn't anything related to Salesforce's interactive debugger. So what does this debugger do? The Apex retrospective debugger executes your unit tests with the proper debug log levels, downloads these logs, and then analyzes them to provide us a debugging-like experience, which is very handy in most cases, when dealing with issues of failed unit tests. And that's it in a nutshell. So right now we are in the debug mode. We can see that the layout has changed a bit. So what options do we have here? In the toolbar, we have different options to go through our execution flow, like step into, step over, step out, and step back. We also have different panels like locals and call stacks. Locals will show us our current variables and their value, and call stack will show us call stack. In addition to this, if we want to see some more information, we can navigate to the debug menu, and we have two additional panels that we can show you here. For example, this panel, debug logs, which shows us the corresponding debug log entries which were executed as part of the step. And the governor limit panels, which shows us the current state of the governor limits on any execution flow. This is very handy for reproducing and fixing performance-related issues. So once we're here, this yellow background that we see highlights to us the current execution step, which will be processed. So let's move on then and see what happens. As we can see, it moves us through some of the execution steps. And right now in my locals panel, I see some variables like variable I equals now. I see some static field and dummy class, and we see the object of dummy type with some variables in it. We could go through all these instructions step by step, but we probably don't need to worry about them. Let's just fix the issue that we have right now. So we will set a breakpoint on that exertion and press the continue button, which should lead us directly to this instruction. So here we can very clearly see that variable I equals 6, and the assertion expects it to be 7. Okay, what to do here? We will go one step back, we will navigate to another method, we can see what parameters we have passed here, and we can also see that the current scope of visibility is taken into account here. So we can see the actual variables with their value. So now we see that this method returns the same value it receives. So let's go back to the unit test, stop the debugging process, and fix this 7 so it will be 6. Save the file, and now we can use another small time saving feature in the Welkin Suite. So we'll go to Build in the menu and select Build and Run Test. Once we press this button, the IDE sends the files that were changed to the organization, and if the IDE detects any unit tests right here, it will execute them immediately. So we see the build was successful, and now we need to rerun the unit test. To do this, we can navigate back to this test method in the Apex editor, and right here in the editor, in the left side of the margin, we see the latest test result of this method. We can right-click on it and select the option Execute Test Method. As we can see, it immediately starts the execution of the test method, and if everything is good, it will be shown here in green. So let's wait a second. Okay, it still failed. So one more attempt. Okay, let's fix it. And press F5 once more. We run this test method from the test results panel, and we should finally see it turn green. Okay, we finally fixed the unit test with the help of the Welkin Suite debugger and Debug Log Viewer. So let's move on and proceed with even more tools in the IDE. And as we've been mentioning the debug logs earlier, let's get back to this subject and we can see what else the debug logs panel can provide to us. So in this panel, all the log files which are generated in the organization appear right here. So you can see different log files, you can see some general information about them such as operation, start time, length, status, and you can even easily filter something less important from this list also. For example, you can select status and then press the filter button to apply some filter. For example, we can show only successful items here. So we go ahead and press the filter button, and now we see there is nothing here because there are no successful logs. So let's clear the filter and go back to the list of items. Also, we can double click on any log file here and it will be downloaded and opened in the Debug Logs Viewer. Also, we have another option here to configure the debug levels directly from the IDE. So we don't need to move to the user interface of the organization. We don't need to move anywhere. We just press this button, configure the proper debug levels that we would like to see, press OK, that's it. The new levels are applied, so now we can see more or less details in our debug log files as we need. Okay, so we're finished with that part. And let's now talk about the code coverage information. So in the code coverage panel, once we've pressed the refresh button, we see a full list of our classes and triggers in the organization with all the details about their code coverage. We see different color highlighting and icons for the different levels of code coverage. Everything that has more than 75% coverage is in green, 50 to 75% coverage is shown in yellow, and less than 50% coverage is shown in red. A really great thing here is that even for this demonstration organization, we have a pretty large amount of test classes. So if we don't want to see the ones that we don't need, we can easily filter them in the same way that we have done with the debug logs. For example, if we want to show everything that is less than 30%, so let's do less than 30 here. And also, for example, if we don't want to spend our time trying to increase the code coverage for any files which only have one line that's not covered by unit test, so we'll apply another filter for uncovered lines. So we go here and we tell it to show everything that is greater than, say, 40. After doing this, we can see where we should spend our time more efficiently to increase our code coverage for the organization. So what can we also do from right here in this panel? We can double click on any file and press the show coloring button, and it will show us directly in the editor which lines are covered by the unit test and which lines are not yet covered by the unit test. This way we can see where we need to spend our time and pay more attention also. And as we've been covering some cool features for coding in the IDE, let's focus on the declarative side for a bit, because this is also a large and important part of Salesforce development. Let's hide this and open an account object. We can hide some of these different panels because we don't need them right now. Okay, what can we find here in the objects editor? In the lower part, we see a regular XML view. So if we're familiar with XML, or if we would prefer to modify anything using XML, we can do this very easily right from here. However, if we don't want to waste our time working with this XML, we can always use this nice graphical user interface for all of our fields. We can easily expand the information about any field. We can see all the information about all the properties for all the fields. We can easily modify the description, so let's let it be something more useful. And we can see that as we type the information into the graphical user interface, it also appears directly in the XML file. We can also modify pick list values from here. Oops, we don't want this to be here. So let's do this and hit save. And in the same way, we can easily add any field to an object just with a couple of clicks without having to load different pages on the Salesforce UI. In addition to the graphical user interface for fields, The IDE also provides us a great tool for field level security management. So once we press the FLS tab in the IDE, you will retrieve everything that is needed for this stuff from Salesforce, and it will show us it in the best way. So right here in the table on the left side, we see the full list of fields for this object. And on the top of the screen, we can see all the profiles in this organization. In these cells, we see our settings for the FLS. We can easily change them by just clicking or with a right click and this menu. Or we can use the IDE's quick actions, which are used for setting the same settings for a field or for the whole profile. For example, this way, and this, and this, and even more. And there's even more that we can do, like for bulk modifications. The IDE team has built a great option for us to easily use the same settings for different profiles or different fields. For example, if we have configured some very complex security settings for one profile and we'd like to apply these settings to the others, we can just right click on the header of that column, select the bulk apply tool, and with just a couple of clicks, select which other profile should have the same settings. And the same applies for the fields. We can right click on any field and select what other fields should have the same settings. In addition to these options, the IDE also provides us with great options for filtering. Because in our case, we have about 30 profiles, and it's not very useful to work with all of them at the same time. So what we can do is press the Filter Profiles button and select just the profiles that we would like to see on the screen. Let's go with Chatter, Contract Manager, and Marketing User. After that, we might also like to filter out some of the fields. So let's type in something in the filter. Let's go with this, and now we don't see a lot of information noise. We just see the information that we need right here. We also see the same approach for this is available to us in the Layouts tab, which shows us the information about our fields on the left side and our available layouts on the top. In the same way, we can easily modify the settings if it is shown on a layout, so if it is required, or if it's editable, or for example, if it's read-only. And you can easily set the section where it will appear in the layout. The same approach for the FLS applies here for quick actions, both for the fields and for the layouts, and even for the sections. So, if we have done all the changes in the Layouts tab, we can press the Save and Deploy button, and all of our changes will go to the organization immediately. And after that, for example, if we would like to organize our fields inside the sections to provide proper ordering, we can click on any of the layouts and select Edit Layout in the organization. This will open our browser with an editor for the layouts where we will be able to record the fields in a way that is more useful to us. And one more great declarative development feature built in the IDE is the permission sets editor. Once we open any permission set, we'll see a graphical user interface, and what we see is the XML part of the file. And on the upper part, we see a graphical user interface. For example, if we expand the system permissions, and if we select System, we'll see a full list of permissions that are available for us here, with all their descriptions and information about dependencies. For example, if we are interested in the permissions for our Auto Apex, we can also see which other permissions it depends on. So once we press this button, the IDE will again retrieve all the information from the organization. It will parse different files. It will then provide us everything that we might need here in a very convenient way. For example, we see that it requires modify all data and view setup configuration. If we want to go one level deeper, we can do this very easily, and we can see that modify all data also will enable a lot of other permissions, like around 100 of them. So know that once we've enabled Author Apex, it will enable a huge amount of other permissions. And also, as we can see, the descriptions are available right here on the right side. So we don't need to hover over any items. We see everything that is needed right here on the screen. The same approach applies for other types of permissions that are available here. For example, for object setting, we see all of our objects, we see field permissions, and the configuration looks the same as the field level security permissions. So it's very easy to modify our permission sets in this editor, and once we're happy, we press apply and our changes go to the organization. And when we're heavily using our permission sets, it's a very common situation when we need to assign them to different users. And especially for this case, we have an option available under Tools and in Permission Sets Assignment. Once we press this, the IDE retrieves all the information about our users, about our permission sets. In this case, there's just 2 users and 4 permission sets. However, it's a very common situation when we could have 50 to 100 permission sets and even 1,000 users. With the same approach that we have in the field level security, or as with layouts, we can easily assign different permission sets to different users. We can use the same quick actions, we can use the same filtering options, and this makes our life with permission management much easier than it was before. And once we are happy with the changes, we apply them and all of them go again to the organization. So that was a high-level overview of some of the features in the IDE. You can find more information about all of these features that are in the IDE by using our documentation that is available on our website. And if you would have any questions, you can very easily contact our support and we'll be very happy to help you out with any of that. Thank you very much and goodbye.